1958, from that time onward I knew him, and I have a special love and regard for him because he helped me to indirectly to become the monk. My brother was I had to take care of my brother who was going to college, and he was the head of a big educational institution. He took my brother in his institution so that I can join very quickly in the monastic order. So he does not know perhaps, but I am very grateful to him that he was very kind to me, and I am extremely happy that he is with us. I wanted him on a Sunday, but his schedule is so tight that we had to fight with the nun in Santa Barbara to get him here for 2 days, 2 nights. Because he is traveling almost all the centers of the order and other places also. So anyhow, tonight Swami will speak about his memories of the direct disciples, and tomorrow he will give a lecture. So please come tomorrow, and we shall be very happy that Swami will be with us.
Swami Chetanananda ji and friends, let me say how happy I am to be able to come to this center, even though not for as long a stay as I would have liked, or you would have liked, or Swami Chetanananda ji would have liked. You see, I have been traveling quite a bit. I have been away from my place of work now more than 2 months. And 2 months is a long time, seeing that that is a very large institution, and we do not have too many monastic workers there. Not at least many senior monastic workers. And I sometimes feel guilty in my mind about being absent for so long a time. That's why I had to schedule my tour in a way that I would be everywhere, I mean in every center of our mission in the United States of America, but only briefly. Now to come to my personal reminiscences of those great souls, I mean the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. It has been my privilege to meet some of them, live with them, and also serve them. You know, when I was just entering college, I finished my school, I was about to enter college. I started visiting Belur Math. I saw those great souls. But to be frank, I did not understand many of them. Not that I understand them even now, no. Only when I became a monk myself and understood what being a monk really meant, I began to realize that it has been my great good fortune to have known them. Small incidents, a few casual words, sometimes a touch, a physical touch, their looks, all these now bear a meaning which I never suspected they had. They inspired me. As I look back, I think of them walking along their, let us say, a very loving look. Sometimes, a man's looks tell more than what he may actually say. He looks at you, you know at once. There's love and affection behind the looks. Maybe he's not saying anything. The look is more eloquent than anything that he might have said in words. So that is what happened. I'm reminded of a day when we were celebrating Sri Ramakrishna's birthday at Belur Math, long ago. I was still a student. I used to come to Belur Math almost every Sunday. And also on special days, the days when some sort of celebration was going on.
Could you tell us which year, Maharaj?
I will come to that. So I remember a group of musicians. Perhaps you are familiar with the Bengali word baul. Baul. Literally, it means vagabonds. They belong nowhere. You see, these baul, they're wonderful people. You might say they are like paramahanshas. They observe no caste rules. Well, they're free from everything. Now these bauls, strangers, all of them, had come. No one had invited them. They had come on their own. They're going round the Math grounds. If you have been to Belur Math, you have some idea about the size of the Math grounds. This was before the big temple was built. We had a larger courtyard then. And they're going round, a dozen of them, singing and dancing. I still remember the purport of the song. They named all the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, the monastic disciples, one after another. They said if they had come separately, each one of them would have been regarded by the world as an avatara. Because they came together, we do not know how great each one of them was. There was Sri Ramakrishna, the sun. And because Sri Ramakrishna was the sun and they were his satellites, they are around him, naturally we do not recognize their greatness. Though if they had come separately, we would have felt that they were as great as an avatar. So I must say that was indeed a wonderful assessment that these people, bauls, mostly uneducated, were made about the greatness of the titled disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Now to tell you how I came to Belur Math, how it happened that I came to be acquainted with this great Ramakrishna movement, even as a small boy. You see, I had a relation who used to work in the railways. My uncle, father's younger brother, we had a joint family. And next to father was my uncle. And he himself had at one time tried to join the mission but did not succeed because his mother opposed it very much. And his son, but that is my cousin, is now a monk and he is now head of that center at mother's place, Jairambati, Prema Rupananda, that is his name. Now, my uncle had come home. I had just finished my annual examination. I had a long vacation. He said, "Why don't you come with me? You have a vacation? Come with me, let us go." So I said, yes, it's a good idea. I had more than a month at my disposal to go wherever I wanted to go, so I accompanied him. And when I was there, the school to which my uncle's son, my cousin, Swami Prema-Rupananda, who is now head of Jaramati, as I have just told you, small boy, he is much younger than I am, said, "Will you care to have a look at our school?" I said, "Yes, let me go." So we went together. And as we entered the school building, someone from one of the classrooms called out to him. And he immediately entered that classroom, and I also followed suit. And as we entered, we were soon followed by a teacher. And because the teacher had entered, we just sat down. We thought it would be bad manners if we went out immediately, so we just sat down. And that teacher turned to me and asked who I was and where I was from and so on. Naturally, a stranger in the class. And I told him who I was. It so happened that teacher was the headmaster of the school. I didn't know. And it so happened also the classroom which we had entered was the classroom of the class to which I had just been promoted. That was the last year of this school. But I was a student of another school far away from this school I'm talking about. And I liked the headmaster very much, very much. But I didn't know that he liked me too. I didn't know then. And after the class, I was very impressed by what he was teaching, the way he was teaching. Everything impressed me very much. And after the class was over, we left the room, we went out. I had not yet seen the school building. We were going round, and again we met the headmaster as we were going round. He said, "Why don't you come and join this school?" I was taken aback when he said this. I said, "I have to consult my parents. I have to ask them. I would like you to come and read here." Then it so happened that I was enjoying a scholarship in my school because I was the best boy in the class. And the rule in that school was that the best boy in the class would always enjoy a scholarship. So I said, "Look, I enjoy a scholarship." He said, "Yes, we can give you a scholarship, but you have to justify it. We would like to test you, and if you turn out to be a good student, then we will certainly be glad to give you a scholarship. Will you come with me? I will test you right away." So he took me to his office. He asked me to write an essay on newspapers. And I wrote one. And he said, "Come on Monday." That was a Saturday. And on Monday, I went back to my uncle. Before I narrated what had happened, my cousin, Prema-Rupananda, narrated everything to my uncle, and my uncle said, "It wasn't fair on your part to have said, 'Yes, I will come if I get a scholarship.' you are the best boy in that school. In fact, they thought very highly of me, though I don't think that was justified. There was any reason for them to think so highly of me. But because I had been reading in that school over the years, they naturally wanted that I should stay on to complete the whole school program there. This was the last year of the school program. And my uncle said, you should not have made any promise. I said, what is the harm? This is a good school too, and I like the headmaster very much. So I went back to school on Monday, and the headmaster said, we will grant you a scholarship, but come and join, start attending classes right away. And in the, usually there is a break in the middle of the day when students have half an hour's time to rest, to buy things, eat, and so on. In that break period, the headmaster sent for me, took me to his home, and asked me to remove my shirt. He wanted to have a look at me. I come from a Brahmin family, and he asked me if he himself was a Brahmin too, and if I practiced the Gita, the Gayatri, if I recited the Gayatri every day and fasted and meditated and so on, if I knew anything about Ramakrishna. I said, a little bit, I didn't know much. And that is how it started. Every day he would take me to his quarters, and he would make me read the Gospel of Ramakrishna. And he had a small shrine, and he would make me meditate there. He happened to be Mother's disciple. His wife also was Mother's disciple. His mother was also Mother's disciple. And his uncle, he had two uncles in the mission, both monks. One was Swami Vividishananda. Another was Swami Atmabodhananda, who was Vividishananda's elder brother. And his cousin was Swami Akhilananda. So he would tell me, look, you don't have to be a scholar. It doesn't matter. That is not very important. Be a monk. He would say, be a monk. Again and again he would say, I'd like to see you a monk. And I said, yes, I will be a monk. And his wife would protest. His wife would say, what right have you got to ask another man's son to be a monk? He comes here to study. You should encourage him to study. Instead of encouraging him to study, you are asking him to be a monk. What right have you got to do that? Why don't you ask your son to be a monk? He said, well, that would be very good indeed. I would be proud if my son became a monk someday. I'd be proud. That would annoy his wife all the more, and she would say, why don't you yourself be a monk? And he would say, oh, how I wish I could do that. So that is how, he began to inspire me. He asked me once, can you meditate the whole night without sleeping? I said, I'll try. And I did. And he was very happy. He was like that. And when I finished my school course, he said, go to Belur Math immediately. He wrote a letter of introduction addressed to his uncle, Swami Atmabodhananda. He did not know that Swami Atmabodhananda was not at Belur Math, and he was at Mayavati. He didn't know. But he wrote a letter. I don't know what he wrote. It was sealed, so I didn't open it. And I had come to Calcutta, and I wanted to go to Belur Math. But I had never been there, and I asked many people, and no one knew where Belur Math was. Everybody said, yes, we have heard of the place, but we do not know where it is. One or two said, well, it is across the Hooghly. You have to cross the river on the other side of the river. So I took a bicycle. I was barely 16 then, and odd months. I took a bicycle. I started. I was in the southernmost part of Calcutta, southernmost part. And I rode all the way to Belur Math. Every few steps I would get off the bicycle, ask a policeman or ask a passerby, could you tell me where is Belur Math? And he would give me some direction, but he himself was not very sure. And that made no impression on my mind. But finally I did get to Belur Math. It was 3:30 in the afternoon, and the temples were just opening. I entered. There was nobody there. Only one monk was there, and I said, where is the shrine? He said, go this way. You have to climb up the steps. It is on the first floor. You know, the temple had not then come into being. There was the old shrine. It was on the first floor of an old building. As I was climbing, Swami Shivananda, who lived just opposite the shrine, he was on the first floor. He opened the window of his room. He saw me. You know, as I look back, I feel he was waiting for me, as if he was waiting to welcome me. He knew I was coming. There's no reason why he himself should open the window. He had attendance, he might have asked somebody to open the window, but he did open it and saw me and began to laugh. Hello, where are you from? Who are you? Very happy. I didn't know what to say. At once 2 attendants came running to me. They took me to him. And he repeated the same question. And when I said that I had just finished my school course, he wouldn't believe it. And he wouldn't even believe it that I had come all the way on a bicycle. Look, this boy, barely 16, he has finished his school course. Or maybe I looked much shorter than I should have, given my age. But somehow or other, he thought it's incredible that I should have finished my school course at that age, and that I had come all the way on a bicycle from that far-off place, Khidirpur, as it is known. And he was very kind, and that is how it started. And all the senior monks began to love me. In fact, as I look back, I feel they spoiled me in a way, you know. They made me think very highly of myself. All of them were very kind to me. And one day, Swami Atma Bodhananda, my teacher's maternal uncle, had by then come down to Belur Math, and a few others, took me to Mahapurush Maharaj. Of course, I used to go to him whenever I visited Belur Math, and I visited it every Sunday. And they said, Maharaj, he's a very nice boy, but he hasn't had any initiation yet. Will you please initiate him? And I began to weep. You know, why I began to weep, I don't know. I began to weep. And he was very pleased. Said, yes, Baba. Baba means father, but you sometimes address your own child as Baba. Yes, Baba, certainly. Right away I will give you my initiation. Well, I don't care for formalities. So he started giving me the mantra. And the monks who had come to introduce me to him, ran away. And he initiated me then and there. You see, that is how it happened, my initiation. Incidentally, long after this, a friend of mine approached me. He said, I would like to have initiation. I hear you have had initiation. My school friend. Could you introduce me to Mahapurush Maharaj, Swami Shivananda? So I took him to Mahapurush Maharaj. I recommended, I said, Maharaj, please initiate me, a friend of mine. He said, yes, I will. But what mantra did I give you? I was hesitating to repeat my mantra. He said, what? You are shy to repeat your mantra to your own guru. Repeat the mantra. So I repeated the mantra. He said, I will give the same mantra to your friend. And he did. You see. So every day, every time I would see him, later I somehow that began to feel very nervous in his presence. Very nervous. I don't know how it happened, but I began to feel very nervous in his presence. When I first met him, I was very free. I was not nervous at all. But later, maybe I began to realize that he was a great soul. Some or other, awe. You see, I would say, well, beware your meetings, a great soul. I would see how other senior Swamis would behave before him. You see, so I used to feel very nervous. But as I said, sometimes I remember his looks. Every time I went, I'd go into his room. He perhaps never said a word or two. Sometimes he would not say anything. He would just look at me. And the love and affection that I could see in his looks, softness, unless you've experienced it, you do not know. So, how I used to feel soothed. If he looked at me, if he smiled a flicker of a smile, I would say. Once in a while, of course, he would be very happy. So it was like this. And on one occasion, I surprised him when he was alone, standing on the veranda of his building, watching the Ganga, alone in the afternoon, standing alone, bare-bodied, no one about. And I surprised. I went there without knowing that he was there. I looked into his room, he was not there. Then I looked around and found he was watching the Ganga flow by, and he was there. And I went and made my pranam. And then asked him, bless me. Son, I said, bless me. And then he placed his hand on my chest and made some remarks, which of course I cannot disclose to you, which is not possible for me to disclose to you. But that sustains me very. That you see, that those words are a source of inspiration to me. I feel highly elated when I remember that I had that good fortune of having him touch me in the chest and say those words. So later when I joined the mission, I noticed certain habits of Mahapurush Maharaj. One habit was, every morning he used to feel he was the chief attendant of Sri Ramakrishna. Chief attendant. So he insisted that every morning the monk who was in charge of the kitchen would come and report what things were being prepared for Sri Ramakrishna. So he would come, he would say, today, Mott was rather financially very much handicapped. We grew our own vegetables, could get our vegetables from other places. We had no choice. We offered to Sri Ramakrishna whatever we were able to grow. Once in a while, maybe something special for Sri Ramakrishna. So the Swami in charge of the kitchen would come and say, sir, today we have got these vegetables from the garden, and I propose, not that he says we are going to prepare, he would say, I propose that we prepare such and such courses for the Lord. Swami Shivananda would listen, and sometimes he would say, fine, go ahead, or he might add one or two items. That's all. But I noticed that every day he would insist. Next to him, the Dr. Swami would come. There was a Swami who was in charge of the dispensary. That was the time when many monks suffered from malaria. And this Dr. Swami would come. He would then say, so and so is still suffering, but his temperature has come down. The symptoms are also slowly going. He's better. So and so. So everyone, the whole list, he will read out, he will mention. And then he will also offer comments, give him some milk. Oh, it was a rare commodity at Belud Mott in those days. Only a handful of people could get milk. So he would say, give him some milk. He needs nourishment, and so on. Next to come would be the man who was in charge of the dairy. We had several good cows in the dairy, and each cow had a name of her own. Someone would be called Mongola, because she was born on Tuesday, Mongol. So she would be called Mongola. Another would be called Bhagavati, goddess. Another, because of her color, would be called Kali, because she was black, like this. And Swami Shivananda knew each of the cows by name. And the monk in charge would narrate how they were getting on, if they had any trouble. On one occasion, I remember, a cow had labor pain, but she was having difficulty being delivered of the calf. So a veterinary surgeon was sent for one of his disciples. But at that time he had not had his initiation. He had started coming. Later he had his initiation. He became a disciple of his. And he came and he relieved he treated the cow, and soon there was a calf, and everybody was happy because that was one of our best cows. And he came. It was winter. And he reported how everything went and paid his respects to Swami Shivananda. It was winter. And on that day, someone had sent him a very costly shawl, Kashmiri shawl. And that was the first time he was wearing it. When this veterinary surgeon came and reported that the cow was fine now, was free from danger, he at once removed the shawl from his body and put it round the body of that veterinary surgeon. Mahapurush Maharaj was always fond of dogs. Even as a boy, he used to have dogs sleeping with him. And even later, when he was president of the order, he had dogs. But they did not sleep with him. But they were there, and they were treated with great consideration by everybody. And every day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, one dog especially, Kelo, because black, would come at 4. He would come, he would start barking, he would lift his head, because Mahapurush Maharaj was on the first floor and he was down below on the ground floor. He would lift his head, he would start barking, 4 o'clock. That is just an indication that he wanted biscuits. So Mahapurush Maharaj would start throwing some biscuits at him and he would gobble them up. Sometimes he would also give them sandesh, sweets. I said them because there was another dog also. But Mahapurush Maharaj's favorite was that black dog. So, sandesh. There was one Swamiji, Swami Lokeshwarananda Senior, and very close to Mahapurush Maharaj. He would watch the dog being fed with sandesh, and he would shout from down below. He would say, "Well, I hope in my next birth I would be a Kelo, so that I could have sandesh like this." Mahapurush Maharaj once came out of his room. Maybe this incident has been reported, is recorded, is known to you. Came out of his room. He had grown old, he had grown feeble, he had difficult to walk, but he came. Outside his room on the veranda there was one big picture, a group picture. You see that picture in many places, you see it here too. A group picture in which you see Swami Vivekananda sitting in the middle on a bed, Swami Brahmananda, Swami Turiyananda, Swami Trigunatitananda, he is standing with one of his feet on the bed. There is also Swami Sadananda. He came, he saw Swamiji there with folded hands. He said, "Oh, Swamiji, how much we owe to you? How much humanity owes to you?" Like this, went praising Swamiji. Then Swami Brahmananda, "Oh, you are our Lord's son." Like this. To everyone he bowed and paid his respects. When he came to his own picture, he said, "Who is this? What right has he got to be here in the midst of these great souls? Why is he here?" That is what he said. Again, he was very proud of the fact that Swami Vivekananda had given him the name Mahapurush. He was very proud of this. He was suffering from asthma, so he had to be very strict about his food. His normal food was, his normal as well as favorite food was a kind of jhol, soup with some vegetables, bitter goods, bitter vegetables. He was a vegetarian, so a jhol. People would say, Mahapurush's jhol, absolutely tasteless, watery. No one would care for it, but he loved that kind of jhol and a cup of milk. That was his favorite food. And doctor said, yes, stay with that, don't change this food. But one day he said, look, I would like to eat everything that you offer to Sri Ramakrishna. Bring me the whole plate, and I will eat everything that you offer to Sri Ramakrishna. I am his servant. I ought to know what you are offering to our Lord. I ought to know. Once you know, someone had prepared pan, you know, betel, for Sri Ramakrishna. And in the betel leaf, there were nuts, betel nuts. But they had not been, you see, normally they should be cut into small pieces. They should be very soft and small, but they were cut into big pieces. And Mahapurush Maharaj, this was reported to him, and he asked for a betel, and he chewed it, and he said, how can our Lord eat this kind of betel? What am I living here for? He was old, he was ailing, but he insisted that he should go into the kitchen, where the beetles were prepared. He said, I must prepare the beetle. How would they know? I have served the Lord. I know what kind of beetle he liked best. So he went and he was weeping. He said, I don't blame anybody. You do not know, but I know. And yet I am not teaching you how to prepare beetle for him. This leads me again to another story. Some of you may have heard the name of Swami Lokeshwarananda. He passed away. He was in Argentina. Passed away. As a brahmachari, he had been assigned the task of preparing beetle. Now once, he narrated this himself to us. He had prepared the beetle, but he said, maybe it's not prepared the right way. I must test and be sure that it is prepared the way it should have been prepared. I have to be sure. So he ate it first. Now this is something which you never do. You offer, this is meant for the Lord, you should not eat it. So this was reported to Mahapurush Maharaj. Somebody went and reported, look, this young man has no respect for the Lord. He doesn't know the basic principles of service to the Lord. And he has started eating the beetle which is supposed to be offered to the Lord first. So remove him from this job. So Mahapurush Maharaj sent for Swami Lokeshwarananda. He was not a Swami then. He had just come to Belmont to enter the orders. Mahapurush Maharaj said, what did you do? Why did you do it? He said, sir, I thought I must check myself and be satisfied that I have prepared the beetle with the right kind of materials, everything right. So I had wanted to test it and satisfy myself that it was right, prepared right. It's not that I meant any disrespect to the Lord. So he was very satisfied as, yes, that's a good idea. Good. So Mahapurush Maharaj said, bring me the plate. I want to eat everything. Now this caused an alarm among the attendants. They said, this will be very, very wrong. He is not giving well. If there is any slight deviation from his usual diets, that would upset him altogether. No, we can't allow him to eat these things. But what to do? So Mahapurush Maharaj had a secretary who was a person who was not afraid of anybody. So he went to, the plate had been brought. Swami Shivananda was about to start eating. He came, his secretary, own secretary, Swami Lokeshwarananda. Everybody knew he was a person who just didn't care anybody, get respect and love, but was not afraid to do what he thought was right. So he said, "Sir, I am not going to let you eat anything from this plate." "What? Who are you to say this?" "Well, never mind who I am. I am a humble person. But I am not going to allow you to eat anything from this plate. You should not eat." "Of course I will eat. I have every right to eat." He said, "Son, I am going to remove the plate from your table. I'll remove everything from the table. You may curse me. I'll go to hell. I don't mind going to hell. You may curse me or punish me or do anything you like, but I won't let you eat these things." He said, "Of course I will eat. See what I am doing." You know, he dipped his forefinger into each bowl and put it into his mouth and said, "Take it away." Then he said, "Look, have you forgotten that Swami Vivekananda gave me the name Mahapurush, the great soul? Do you think out of greed I wanted to eat these things? Far from it. Am I not the chief attendant of Sri Ramakrishna? Don't you think it is my duty to taste now and then the food that is offered to Sri Ramakrishna, to be sure that the right sort of food is being offered to him? That is why I wanted to taste it." So it was like that. Once a thief had entered Balloon Mott and had stolen something, but he was caught red-handed. And the monks began to debate what to do with him. The matter was reported to Swami Shivananda. He said, "Bring him to me." Swami Shivananda asked him, "Why did you come to a monastery to steal? You know this is a monastery. We ourselves are poor. Why did you come to steal here? What did you expect to get here?" That man, a Muslim, said, "Sir, I am very poor. I am practically starving. That is why I came to steal." As soon as Swami Shivananda heard this, said, "Oh, poor, starving. Look, give him some money immediately. Give him some food and give him a new piece of cloth immediately and let him go." And Mahapurush Maharaj said, "Look, my child, don't steal. Try to give up stealing. And don't, please, steal. Come here to steal. Don't do it." And that man, very happy, went away. So he was like this, Mahapurush Maharaj. Next, I will tell you one or two reminiscences. I will narrate my I will tell you about my reminiscences of Swami Akhandananda, who later became president of the order. Swami Akhandananda was a man who loved trees very much. You know, he had set up an orphanage, the first monk to set up an orphanage. Swami Vivekananda was very, very happy. He said, "I will send you money. Go on." Now, when he became president, he would not like to come and stay at Balloon Mott. He preferred to stay at the place where he had been serving the people, having started an orphanage and a school and a few other projects. And he was very fond of trees. I remember on one occasion, it was summer, very hot, and he was the only man to have a fan in his room. No one else had any fan in their rooms, but he had one. And again he was saying, "I want to go back to that place, Shargachi, a small village where there was no electricity and no amenities. But the monks would say, "Sir, isn't it very hot at your place?" And there is no electricity there. And we hear, even to get water, you have to go and fetch it from a well. There is one single well there, no running water. He said, "Look, do you know why I want to go back to that place in this summer? I can hear the trees scolding me. They are saying, 'Oh, you are now a big man. You are president of the Ramakrishna order. So many people waiting on you. But here, we do not get even water, a single drop of water. We're dying, and you living there in great comfort.'" You see, I was very touched by what he said, with great emotion, great feelings. I can hear their voices, they're scolding me. That is what he said. Once a lady devotee came to him, said, "Sir, may I cook a few things for you?" He said, "Yes." "What things shall I prepare for you?" He said, "Anything you like, prepare." So one day the lady came with a few things that she had prepared, and Maharaj Swami Lokeshwarananda said, "All right, I'll eat them." And he ate. Next day again that lady came and asked, "Sir, did you eat them?" "Yes, I ate them. I liked them very much." "But what spices did you use in preparing them?" She narrated the spices that she had used. "Are you sure that was all that you used by way of spices?" She said, "Yes, sir, that is all. There is nothing else that I used." "Why, sir? Why do you ask that question? Do you think anything was wrong?" She said, "You are sure to have added another spice, but you are not mentioning it." We pulled her and she said, "Sir, I am not able to remember having used any other spice besides that." "Did you not use the spice of love in preparing this?" The woman, the lady, began to shed tears when he said that love makes a lot of difference. Then he said, "Love makes a lot of difference." So that was the kind of man he was, full of humor, like a child, and narrate his experiences. He had traveled by foot all over India, gone into the Himalayas, gone into Tibet. He used to narrate, and he was a great storyteller, had a wonderful memory. Now I will come to Swami Lokeshwarananda. Now, Swami Lokeshwarananda had been an engineer. He had met Sri Ramakrishna. He and Swami Lokeshwarananda went to the same college. They were college friends. And he came and joined the order. But he preferred to live at Allahabad alone. He was not a trustee, not in any way connected with the administration of the order. When Swami Shivananda died, Swami Lokeshwarananda became president, and the order needed a vice president. So Swami Lokeshwarananda decided to appoint Swami Lokeshwarananda vice president. Swami Lokeshwarananda had a great weakness for fountain pens. He had many fountain pens. But if anybody offered him a good fountain pen, he would gladly accept it. So Swami Lokeshwarananda wrote to him. No, first he wrote to him, said, "Please come and stay at Belur Math. Would like to have you as vice president." He said, "I am not interested, leave me alone."
Then Swami Lokeshwarananda wrote to him saying, look, I will give you a good fountain pen if you agree. He wrote back, send me that fountain pen first. I will sign the letter of acceptance with that pen. When I get that pen, I will write. And that is what was done. Now, he had some peculiar habits. One, the kind of dress diet he had. It might be hot. Allahabad is a place where the temperature goes very high in summer. But he would have sometimes 3 or 4 socks, and one of them would be even woolen socks. He would have a number of shirts and coats, a cap on his head. He would be like this. And all these, absolutely shapeless, so that people looking at him would say, now, isn't he funny? Once children were laughing when they saw him at Allahabad. He said to them, why are you laughing? Do I look like a monkey? So he was like that. But the strangest habit he had was that when he had to catch a train, he would arrive at the rail station 3 hours before the train was scheduled to leave. Invariably did this. And if anybody asked him, sir, why do you do this? He said, look, these British machines, don't trust them. They can betray you. Funny. Now, when he became president, he had once come to Belur Math, and he wanted to return to Allahabad. Swami Abhayananda, otherwise known as Bharat Maharaj, who was manager then, had arranged his booking, had his seat reserved, had got a good car also for him, for his use to travel to the rail station. So he went to Swami Vivekananda. He begged, sir, your train is at such time. You usually start very early. You arrive 3 hours in advance. I suggest on this occasion, you don't start so early. If you leave Belur Math, say, it takes only half an hour. Well, you have your reservation. We have a good car, a new car for your use. The road is not, there is no much traffic on the road. So I suggest the devotees will come. They want to see you off. They want to pay your respect as you leave, because you will be away for several months. So I suggest that you leave later. I say an hour before the train leaves. He was very reluctant, but then because Bharat Maharaj began to insist, he said, all right, as you wish. So they started. Just 1 hour, maybe even less than an hour. Now as they left Belur Math, there was a flat tire. Well, that is not a very serious matter. That may make a difference of 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so. The tire, a new tire was fixed. So they started again. To their great surprise, they found there was a big marriage procession. Some rich man going to marry, and a large procession band and so on, large possession, and there was no way of making any progress. So they were held up, and meanwhile the time was ticking away, and Bharat Maharaj kept looking at the watch again and again, and he was perspiring. What will happen? So Vivekananda, most unconcerned, was there. They were able to reach this station barely 5 minutes before the train had left, was due to leave. Since then, no one would interfere with his schedule. Yes, sir, you're free. He was ill at Belur Mount, but he would not take any medicines. His attendants would say, "Sir, shall we call a doctor?" "Oh no, don't worry, I'm fine." But he had been having temperature every day, and he was becoming weaker and weaker. He would not take any medicine, he would not eat anything either. So Bharat Maharaj went to him, "Sir, please allow us to call a doctor." He said, "No, don't worry, I'm fine." "No, sir, I would like to call a doctor." He said, "Will you call a good doctor?" "Yes, of course, I will call one of the best." "Who will you name? Who will be that best doctor?" Then he mentioned the name of someone who was a British knight and well known all over the country, based in Calcutta. "Oh, you see, he is the best doctor." "Yes, sir." "You mean there is no one better than he?" "No, sir, I don't know of anyone better than he." He said, "Well, you do not know, but I know. There is one who is still better than he." "Swami Abhayananda, who is that?" "He is in the temple. He is looking after me. Don't worry, leave me alone." He was like that. At Allahabad, he had been seriously ill. Everybody was worried. This was his last illness. Some of the senior monks went to see him. They asked him to come to Belur for treatment. He refused. In fact, he refused to see anybody. He would say, "Please leave me alone." He would not let anybody enter his room. That was his habit. There was a boy, one young man, he had raised him. He was the only one who was allowed to enter his room. But they went in all the same. He didn't like it, but they did go in. They begged. He said, "No, I am not going to take any medicine. I am all right." And all the time he would keep saying, "Chalo ji, chalo ji. Let us go, let us go." He would say, "Let us go, let us go." As if he was talking to Sri Ramakrishna, he was saying, "I'm ready, let us go. Why are you delaying? Let us start." He would have a jar of water in his room and nothing else, and no one would be permitted to enter the room except that boy. He would enter that room once in a while. So he passed away. He had told that boy, of course he had grown old, he had grown up, he was an adult then, never to marry. He loved him much. If anybody went to him and said, "Sir, I would like to take your picture," he would say, "Oh no, not my picture, his picture." He would ask him to take a picture of his servant, and he would have him dressed like a prince with a turban and everything like this. And even now you can see those pictures. When I first went to that place, I found everywhere there were pictures of that man. He was our cook then. He had told him not to marry. But when Swami Lokeshwarananda died, his relations began to visit him often and say, why don't you marry? They thought he had plenty of money. He must have, Swami Lokeshwarananda must have given him whatever money he had. Maybe he had, but no one knows. But this young man said, oh no, he told me not to marry. But he is gone now. What prevents you from marrying? Why should you not marry? You are not going to be a monk. Slowly, his mind began to change, and he said, all right, I will marry. But how can I leave this place? I can't tell the monks that I want to marry. We need not tell them anything. Sleep out one night. So one night was fixed, and he tried to, when everybody had gone to bed, he tried to sleep out. He wanted to go out by the front door. As he approached the door, he found Swami Lokeshwarananda sitting there in his big chair. When he saw this, he got frightened. How is he? How is it that he is here? But again and again he looked. Swami Lokeshwarananda was there. He moved away. Then he thought, might be I could sleep out by the back door. Went there. Again he found he was sitting there. Said, what is the matter? How can this happen? So he was very nervous, went back to his room and spent a sleepless night. Next day his relations came. What is the matter? We waited outside, you never came. But he said, this is what had happened. Nonsense. That man is gone. And you see him, you imagine. Never. Come tonight. Be sure that you come. He said, all right, I'll try. Again the same thing happened. This happened for 3 nights in succession. And that was the end of it. He never tried again. And to the last day, he sought the monks. Swami Lokeshwarananda had told him, sought the monks, stay here, never marry, don't go back home. And he did that and died. He was a nice man, that man. I knew him. Well, there are so many such stories. Swami Subodhananda is another man I knew very well. Briefly, I think I have taken a long time, I should close now. He used to visit Bangladesh. Now Bangladesh, it was East Bengal then, Dhaka. Once a year he would go there. And he had to go by steamer. Part of the way he had to go by launch, by boat, steamboat. And the people who accompanied him would make out a good, comfortable bed for him, and he would sit there and the devotees would surround him. One day a college student was watching everything, and he was laughing. He came forward and said, if I receive this kind of attention, well then I am prepared to be a monk. Swami Subodhananda overheard the remark. He said, come on, come here. At first the young man was non-silent. Yes, so he came. He said, please sit here. So he sat on the bed. Other people never did that, but he sat on the bed. Then slowly he took his hand and then said, look, I promise that I will serve you. I will see that you receive the same amount of attention as I am receiving, if not more. Come and be a monk. Now, at first that young man said, oh, I didn't mean it, I was joking. But Swami Subodhananda said, but I mean it. I mean it, you can't leave here. You have to be a monk. And he won't let him go. Held him firmly. And then that young man apologized and said, please, let me go. Swami Vivekananda once asked all his brother disciples to practice public speaking. He asked each one to speak. Some were very reluctant, but some were willing. We can't say no to Swami Vivekananda. The last man to speak was Swami Shubodhananda. He got up to speak. He had hardly begun when an earthquake started, a real earthquake. And Swami Vivekananda said, "What a speech, magnificent speech Swami Shubodhananda had made. It was an earth-shaking speech." You see, Swami Shubodhananda's name was Koka. So every now and then he would say, "I am a Koka, what do I know?" If somebody, some devotees went to him, asked him anything, any philosophical question, a religious question, he said, "I am a Koka, what do I know? I don't know anything." But he was also very well versed in some of the scriptures, in the Puranas, for instance, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and the Puranas, very well versed and very intelligent, highly connected. I used to see him, he was suffering with tuberculosis. Never mind, alone, no complaint, always smiling and happy. And I have met also Swami Abhedananda. I have met M. Master Mahashaya. I have met Ramlal Maharaj, Ramlal Da, Sri Ramakrishna's nephew, the other nephew, Shivaram. I have seen Radhu, regal. She was majestic, walking along the street, majestic like this. You know, she also suffered from tuberculosis, TB. She was taken to Benares. She was dying. So people thought, let her die there. So the monk who had taken her there said, "Radhu, stay here. It's a holy place. You'll go to heaven if you die here." I said, "What? I have to die in Benares to go to heaven? Have I not lived with the mother of the universe? Have I not enjoyed her love and affection? To go to heaven, I have to die here. I will go back to Jadambati and I will die there and go to heaven." That's what she says, very spirited. And I have seen her too. I miss seeing Swami Sharadananda. Although I have a feeling that I have seen him, but I can't be sure of, because I once saw someone very like him in a railway station. I had been visiting Belmont when he was there, but as I said, I had been spoiled by some of the senior monks. They told me, "We will take you to Swami Sharadananda someday." And I was waiting for that, but then he fell ill and died. So I never saw him. I cannot claim I saw him. But I can also claim that I have seen Mother. I have a feeling that I have seen her. But it is all imagination. It is just imagination. Because it so happens that as a boy, I used to bathe in the ghat at Bagbajar, where Mother used to bathe. And some of us boys, who are, says, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, like that, some of us would go together, would swim, splash water. But if Mother was there, I remember this scene. Some elderly people will warn us, will point to her. I have an impression, someone bathing there, a lady, surrounded by 3 or 4 other ladies, and all people leaving the water till she finished her bathing. I have that impression, but it might be somebody else, or it may be, it's just imagination. But I love to think that it is not imagination, it is true, that it was she that was taking her bath. So that's all. I'm very glad to have been able to share with you these memories, great, great memories. As I look back, even the smallest incidents appear to have such a deep meaning. I will just reminded of another incident. One night after supper, the monks had all gathered on the veranda below Swami Shivananda's room. And they were laughing and shouting. You know, sometimes they behave like school children, our monks, senior monks, pulling each other's leg. You know, they sometimes would compose doggerels to poke fun at other monks. So they were laughing, shouting, very happy. Swami Shivananda was above that veranda and he was hearing their voices. Do you know what he did? With folded hands he said, Mother. He used to call Sri Ramakrishna Mother. You probably know that. He had lost his mother very young. So right from the first day he met him, when he first met him, he placed his head on his lap and began to weep. And Ramakrishna began to treat him as if he was his child, motherly affection. So Swami Shivananda would always refer to him as Mother. So with folded hands he said, Mother, these boys have left home and hearth. They have left behind their parents and their close relations. They have come to you for joy, to be happy, to enjoy this life, the life of bliss. Mother, protect them, make them happy. See that they are not disappointed having come to you. You see, that is what he said. So Mahapurush Maharaj was like that. Thank you.